All right, everybody. Hello, 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 everybody. It's me, Stephanie Nietzsche, and I am here today with novelist Dina Santorelli.
Hi, Stephanie.
Hi,
Thank you so much for having me.
hi, Dina. Thanks so much for making time to have
Of
a chat
course.
with me. Now, for anyone out there who was not familiar with your books, Dina,
Mhm.
give us a little bit of tell us about your books.
Okay, I am a suspense thriller writer. I write my first book was called Baby Grand, and it's sort of like a mob thriller, and it's the first book. It's the first book in a trilogy.
I read that one. Excellent, excellent book.
Thank you. And I just, it's so funny because people are always surprised that I write thrillers, I guess because I tend to be, I'm sort of have a bubbly personality, very nice. And when it comes to writing, I'm very attracted to dark themes. I like being, little scared. I like the suspense. And
Right.
also when I read and also when I watch films and TV, like when I binge watch, it's usually like a thriller type series.
I was going to ask you that too, what you read. I was going to ask you that. So you do read what you write.
I do try to read all kinds of things because in addition to being a thriller author, I also am a freelance writer and editor. And so I'm working with writers who write all kinds of books, whether it's nonfiction or romance. And so I do try to spread it out a little bit. I'll read a thriller and then I'll go to like a memoir and then head back to maybe like historical fiction, just to
Okay.
be well-rounded as a reader.
And since you are an editor also, do you find it a little easier when you go over your own work to maybe catch things or change things? I mean, I know we all rely on another set of eyes and in a lot of cases, another editor. So do you
Yeah.
find though that you catch a lot of things of your own? How is that when you write
Oh
and
yeah,
you are an editor?
I catch things all the time. It's always amazing to me how I mean my novels I probably read from beginning to end, they've probably been read by me 50, 60, 70 times. And it's always amazing. And I catch things at every reading. And it's always amazing to me how I can have the book published, be sitting there with it in my hands and see a typo and think, how did that get through? Power to you, typo, because you got past 50, 60, 70 reads. But yeah, it's just
Yeah.
constant editing. And I do send my books out to a copy editor because even though I do copy editing, it's really not my forte. And so I want to make sure a professional copy editor reads my books before they go to print.
And did you always write? Did you write, when you were in school? Did you write as a child? When did you
I
start
it's
having the love of
interesting.
writing?
It's interesting. I was more of like a math science student.
Hmm.
I did well in my English classes, but it wasn't something that I wouldn't call myself a great writer from the get-go. I didn't have confidence, but I loved writing and I did write these stories. I always say that and it's true, I wrote these stories on like construction paper and crayons and pens when I was a little girl. But I never had that confidence. But when I was in high school, I went to Forest Hills High School in Queens.
Dina,
And
I went to Forest Hills High School.
no, my gosh, you're kidding.
I went to Forest Hills High School. I just don't remember
Oh
the
my
years or
gosh.
anything like that. But
Oh
yes.
my gosh.
So are you from Queens?
I am. I am. I grew up in Middle Village, New York, and
Oh my
I
God.
went to junior high school 119 and then to Forest Hills High School.
Wow. And I'm Ozone Park. So
I
that's
used to work in Ozone Park. I was a telephone operator for Columbia Savings Bank.
oh my God.
That's so
Wow.
funny.
What a small world. You know what's funny too? When we first moved to Long Island, I met so many people that were from the boroughs that
Oh
did not
yeah.
grow up on Long Island. And it was just so
Oh yeah.
amazing. I met someone, she used to live down the block, but now she moved to Florida. But she used to cut my hair. And I didn't even know that. She used to cut my hair on Jamaica Avenue, which I'm sure you're familiar with,
Oh,
Jamaica
of
Avenue
course.
in
Of
Woodhaven,
course.
but she used to cut my hair. So when I met her and then I found out she was a stylist, I went to her house for a haircut and we started, just talking. And then we're like,
Right,
oh,
right.
I'm from Queens, I'm from Queens. And then she said, yeah, I used to cut hair at blah, blah, blah. And I used to go, oh my God, I used to get my hair cut there. And it turned out she was the one that cut my hair.
Oh, that's too
It,
funny.
it is. It is. It's just amazing. So I didn't even know that about you. So
Yes.
that is so interesting. So I'm sorry. Go ahead. You went to Forest
Oh,
Hills
no, that's
High School.
okay.
I totally got blown away when you said you went to Forest Hills High School.
So if you went to Forest Hills High School, you must be familiar with the Beacon. That's the Forest Hills High School newspaper. And I joined the newspaper and I became the news editor. And it was while I was there, I fell in love with news and journalism. And when I went to college, I went to Hofstra University. Did you go there?
No. I know, right? No, nope. That's all yours.
I went to Hofstra and I became a journalism major. And I found that even though I didn't have a lot of confidence in my creative writing, I found that journalism really spoke to me because it was, it wasn't very descriptive. It was basically, who, what, where, when, why, and how, just information driven. And that really suited me. And then so that's where I began my career. I got my first job at the Massapequa Post. I was an editor there. And so I started in local journalism, and then I moved to the trades, and I was writing about things like floor covering and, lamps. And my mom would say, where can I get these magazines? And at the time there was no internet, and she just couldn't. It was like trade publications and vertical publications. And so she had no idea what I was doing. And what's really funny is I always say, when you're in journalism school or you're in college, you're not aspiring to write about lamps and lampshades.
Right.
But let me tell you, that was really where I learned how to be a journalist. I learned how to interview. I traveled. I met a lot of people. I learned how to write creatively or descriptively. And I basically became a freelancer when my kids were born. But it's over those years of being in journalism that I really developed the confidence and I think the skills to finally sit down and say, you know what, I have these ideas in my head for stories, for thriller stories. I think I'm going to take the leap and I'm going to give it a go. And so when I was in my late 30s, I actually went back to Hofstra to get my my master's degree in English and creative writing. But for me, it wasn't really about the degree. It was about just being around people who were interested in writing and storytelling. And so I did like the part-time thing. And every Wednesday I would say to goodbye to my 3 kids and my husband, who at the time were like, 7, 5, and 2. And I would just go to a place where I didn't have to think about, sippy cups and diapers and just sit there and immerse myself in storytelling. And that's where I started my first novel, Baby Grand. It was at Hofstra.
Wow. So now how long did it take you to complete?
I would say it took about a year and a half. I would say, generally speaking, for all my books, it's about a year and a half to write, with the exception of In the Red, which is my latest book, because I started In the Red after Baby Grand. And I don't know if that was the best idea, because I didn't realize at the time that Baby Grand was going to be a trilogy. And so I found it difficult to sort of change mindsets. So In the Red took about 4 years to write the first draft. But generally speaking, it's about a year and a half.
And with Baby Grand, did you know right away, like your beginning, your middle, your end? Like, what did you have at first?
Interestingly, I had an end. I knew it. Yeah, I knew exactly I knew the last line of the book. But I didn't know how to get there. I really didn't. And when I started writing it at Hofstra, I'm what you call a pantser, term I'm sure you're familiar with. I just sit down and I start to write. There's no outlining, there's no backstory. I don't have these elaborate character histories. I just sit down and I just start to write. And then I sort of learn about my characters and learn about my stories as I go. So I get to the point where at the end, I know them really well. Which is why I guess I write the way I write. It's just constant editing. I'm just constantly re-editing chapters, adding details, adding nuance until I get it to where I want them to be.
Well, like I said, I did read that book, and I have to say it was everything you would want in suspense.
Oh my gosh.
And thriller.
Thank you so much.
Like when you read a book, and the feeling that you get while you're reading it, and you feel so upset for the main character, like you're kind of like on the edge of your seat with the main character.
So
if I recall correctly, is Jamie.
Yeah, Jamie.
So Jamie, I'm not bullying, I'm not going to give anything away, but I do
Oh,
want to
no,
say
that's
this,
okay.
because Jamie, I'm sorry, you know what? Let's just say hello to Josephine Wrightson. Hi, Josephine.
Hi, Josephine.
Thank you so much for viewing. I do want to say that when I started Baby Grand and the main character, the predicament that she ends up in, I just want to
Yeah,
for a second. It is like a predicament that anyone can find themselves in.
right.
And I wish I could say more because but I can't, because I don't want to give anything away. But it just, when I read that, I was like, oh my God, that could happen to anybody at any time. How scary. So
Right.
already that sucked me in, where I was so worried about Jamie and what was going to happen. So
Aw,
you had me, and I want to ask you another question about that book too. So
sure.
the cover, how does that, I mean, I know, or at least I think I know how that ties into the story. So how did you choose that cover? And is there a tie-in, without giving too much away, to the story?
You know what's funny? I actually have two covers for that book. I have the original cover, and then this year I decided to rebrand the trilogy, because originally
Ah,
I didn't expect there to be a trilogy. I really thought Baby Grand would be it. It would be a standalone novel, and I'd move on to something else. But when I got to the end of the book, I could really see the story continuing. So I decided to do the second book, and then the same thing happened at the end of Baby by Lino. I ended up doing a third book. And so it's always been a thing for me where I felt like the covers they didn't like match enough for me. I thought that, I mean, they were similar in style and tone, but I didn't like, I wanted them to be more exact.
right,
So for
right.
the original concept for Baby Grand, I was going for something very moody. And so I worked with a cover designer. I had all these ideas about what I wanted to be on the cover because, without giving anything away, there's a kidnapping, then there's an abduction of a woman, as we were talking about. And so we ended up going with more of like exterior, like a dark woodsy feel, which is where, you know, the hostages essentially are being held up in upstate New York.
Right, right, right.
So, and then I decided, and I just have it here. I have, this is the new cover of Baby Grand, which is more, it's also very exterior and moody, but it's more of like focusing on the log cabin. Again, which is where the hostages, the kidnapped child and the abducted woman are being held. So yeah, so it's funny, I had ideas for what I wanted the covers to be of all my books, but I always find that when I work with cover designers, their ideas are so much better because that's their business, and they really have that visual sense. You know, I'm more about the words. And so I find that, you know, I'm like, oh, you know, maybe we'll do this, maybe we'll do that. And then when I get my ideas given back to me, I think, I don't know how I feel about that. And then they show me what they had in mind. And it's like, oh, that's so much better.
Right.
So yeah, that's where the cover came from.
Okay, because I know the original cover, there is a scene that I tie in with what happened with when they're, you know, there's some running going on. I don't
Oh
know.
yes.
That also kept me on the edge of my seat because I was like, is this going to happen? Is that going to happen? So
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
that's a fascinating, it was just such a fascinating book. You had
Oh,
me
I'm so
at
glad.
every moment of it. I do want to read the rest.
Aw, thank you.
But yeah, I really, for anybody who loves those type of books, I highly, or even if you don't, I highly recommend it. It really gives you a jolt, you know, it really gives you a jolt. It's
Oh,
a
thank
fascinating
you.
book.
You know, it's funny. I wrote Baby Grand at night for the most part. As I mentioned, my kids were little, and I used to set my alarm clock for 2 o'clock in the morning, and it would go off, and I would slither down to my computer, which I was at the time I was writing on my dining room table, and I would write for a couple of hours or as long as I could before my eyelids really started to close. And then I would slither back upstairs to bed, and I would wake up at 6, 7 o'clock with the kids. And I remember nights where, I mean, especially for your first novel, where you're just thinking, what am I doing? You know, is anybody going to care about this? Is anyone going to get what I'm trying to do here? And so when I hear, you know, you say stuff like that, and I hear that people are enjoying the story, I remember those times when I was by myself, wondering if I was wasting my time, if I should have become a plumber or something. And it makes it all, it's very validating and gratifying. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're very welcome. And that's why I feel, and I love to remind people how important their reviews are. A
Oh
lot of
yeah,
readers don't feel that their reviews are, they feel their reviews don't matter, or maybe they don't know what to write. But sometimes the simplest thing, even
yeah,
it was a good book or it was a great book, it means so much to us as writers to let us
agreed.
know that they actually enjoyed the story. So guys, please write those reviews because they are really, really super important. So now while you were writing during those crazy hours, you said you would set your alarm at 2 a.m. So you
Yeah,
would sleep? You would sleep some first and then
yeah.
wake up at 2 a.m.?
Yeah, I'd probably sleep for a couple of hours and then I get up at 2 o'clock, maybe work till right till 4, and then sleep till 6.
And
So
then go
6 or
back.
7.
Yeah. See, they do say if you want to write, you really have to work your schedule around it, right? Because it's not for
Yeah, yeah.
kids.
People always say to me, I can't believe you did that, and I don't know if I can do that. But I always say to them, maybe your thing isn't writing, maybe your thing is running, or maybe your thing, whatever your passion is, if you think about it, you'll realize that you find a way to do it. And
I
for me,
believe
this was
that. Yeah.
something that was so important to me, especially because I was starting later in the game, because like I said, I wasn't very confident in my writing skills, my creative writing skills at first. So I really wanted to get this done. And for me, when I have no time and I have so many things going on, the first thing that goes is sleep. I'll just get no sleep. And then if I need more time, I won't do any housework. That's the second thing that I usually let go. So
I
it's
think
sleep
we're
and
all
housework.
guilty of that. Yeah. I think we are definitely all guilty of that. So now when you released your first book,
Mhm.
so people were shocked, you said, because your personality is more on the bubbly light side.
Yeah, it's I got a lot of interesting reactions. And I always say to people, um, just because I don't walk around sounding like Tony Soprano all the time doesn't mean I couldn't. Like I know those words and I know what they mean. But so for me, it's all about storytelling. So I become these characters, especially in the Baby Grand series, which is really like a mob thriller book. And so there's a lot of F-bombs being thrown around, and I'm also coming from Queens, as you know, I'm very comfortable with that. There were a lot of F-bombs being thrown around on my block, when I was growing up. So, I'm familiar with that milieu, and I don't necessarily exude that in real life, but I can definitely write it.
You're definitely right about it.
Yeah.
That is for sure. And then how do you name your characters? Do you find that ever difficult, or do they come pretty easy to you?
It's funny. Sometimes I have a very specific goal with a character's name. Like for instance, Jamie Carter, who's the heroine of Baby Grand and the whole series. I wanted a name that could be both feminine and masculine. So I was going for that. But more often than not, when I'm not really very specific, I just pull names out of thin air. Like for instance, there are times where I was writing and somebody would email me, and it could be a friend, it could be a colleague, and I'll just pluck that person's name because right at that moment I happen to need a name. I'll just take that person's name and add it to the manuscript. So so my friends' names are in there, last names, first names, people that I know, people maybe who I don't know well but live on my block. I'll just take a name from anywhere because I don't know, because I think it's fun.
Yeah, no, it is. And how about the setting? Like, how do you pick that? How do you decide where where your story is gonna be set?
I I one of the tenets of writing is to write what you know. And so I guess when I started off with my creative writing career, I wanted to do a New York based novel because that's what I was most familiar with. And
Right.
so Baby Grant and also Baby Bailino and Baby Carter all take place in the, upstate New York, downstate New York, Long Island, New York City area. Same within the Red. The only difference is in the third book for the Baby Grand trilogy is I sort of move from New York down to Washington, D.C. and also Wyoming, which I've never been to actually. So I've sort of just did a lot of Google earthing and a little bit of research to sort of capture the feeling of the town that I chose in Wyoming. But I find that I feel most comfortable, as a New York writer, I feel most comfortable in the Northeast. And I think that's where most of my books are even the books I've written and the books that probably I'm going to write will probably be, kind of like Stephen King, has his, he has his books set in Maine. I guess I'll be the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, tri-state area writer.
Sounds good. Sounds good to me. So now you didn't plan on a trilogy, you said.
No.
Right? So where in your first book, or was it after your first book, did you decide that you were going to go on with the story? Or did you know you were going to have a second book, but you didn't think you were going to have a third book? How did that go?
No, I really thought that Baby Grand would be just a standalone novel. And because I had other ideas for books and other things I wanted to write. I didn't want to be like pigeonholed as a certain kind of writer. But when I was writing one of the final scenes of the book, I reached the point where I really thought that I could see the story continuing. And I've heard a lot of authors say that, oh, when I'm writing, the characters guide me and I don't, I'm just a vessel. And I think for the most part, that's true. But
Right.
in the case of at the end of Baby Grand, I made a very authorly conscious decision to change the plot and then create books 2 and 3. Because I could have easily ended it after book 1, but I decided there was more of a story to tell. There was more of a character arc for a few of them, and so I committed to doing at least book 2. And then the same thing happened for book 3. I at the end of book 2, I was like, this is going to be it. And then when I got there, when I was actually writing those final scenes, I thought, oh gosh, no, I think there's one more in me. I think there's one more story to tell here, and then that'll be it.
So the original, you said you knew the ending from the beginning. So you stuck with that ending.
For the first book, yeah. For the first book, I stuck that one sentence at the end of Baby Grand. I was writing toward the entire time.
And then while you were writing the book, I know you said you had, doubt and things like that, which I think all writers suffer with. But when you got so close, like do you remember like the pivotal point where you were like, wow, I'm writing this book, or wow, I'm actually going to finish it? Because so many authors start projects, or so many writers start projects and they never finish them, right? There's a ton of spiral notebooks, or there's, a million scraps of paper, which is to say in the beginning, that was the case with me also. But when did you say, wow, this is actually going to happen? I think I'm going to do this. Like, I think I'm going to have a whole
probably not until I wrote the end. I mean, really, there's doubt every step of the way. And like you, I also have projects that I've started and didn't finish. And I think the reason for that is because and I say this to some of my clients, it gets hard. It's so easy to sit down and start writing, and it's like the breeze is blowing through your hair and you're creating characters. And then you get to that middle section. And I always find the middle to be difficult, because you're sort of transitioning from, that beginning period, and you have to sort of focus your energies toward a conclusion, and things have to make sense. Connections have to be made, and it can be difficult. And all of a sudden, I remember in the beginning of my career, like my mind would wander and be like, oh, I don't really know if I want to finish this. Maybe I'll start something new, because it's so much easier to do that. But I think I just committed and said, no, I'm going to do this, and it's going to be hard, and I'm going to have doubt every day. And I just knew that. And I did. I mean, it was just constant doubt that you're not good enough, that, and you just have to sort of battle through it and until you write the end. And then I always say, what's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is you write an entire book and it's awful, right? It's just awful, but you can fix that. Once you have the book, you can re-edit it. Yeah. So just get to that finish line and worry about the rest later.
That's so true. I feel if the writer is interested enough in the story to write about it, someone will always be interested enough to read it.
I hope so. Yeah.
That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I agree.
So another question I have for you is, when you finished your first book, and did you have was that online? Did you have to press submit or post, or when did you let it go? Release it, that it was ready for the world to read? And how did that feel?
What's interesting is it's interesting. My nonfiction career and my fiction career were sort of growing at the same time. And when I was working on Baby Grand, I was also working on my first nonfiction book as a collaborator. I work with other authors, either as a ghostwriter or a collaborator or a co-writer. And so I was working with an agent at that time on that project. And, on a whim, I went to her and said, are you taking new fiction clients? And she said yes. And I asked if she would take a look at the time, I only had about a third of Baby Grand completed. So I asked her if she would take a look at it, and she said yes. And I don't know if she was just humoring me or she enjoyed our working relationship on the nonfiction side. But she did, she read it and she really liked it. And she ended up becoming my agent for that book.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that gave me the impetus to, at that point, the book was only about a third completed, and that gave me the impetus to finish it. Like I was like, woohoo, I'm going to get this done. And so not long after that, we just, I edited the book, I copy edited the book, and we decided to send the book out on a very limited basis to maybe 10 traditional publishing editors at like big houses. And so, and I know this is going to happen, this is rejection and is part of the industry. And so we sent out the manuscript and we started getting back rejections. One rejection was like, sometimes it's not a good fit, but one editor would say, I really love Dina's storytelling, but I didn't think she was a good enough writer. And then the next rejection was like, I think Dina is a great writer, but I didn't really love her storytelling. Mm-hmm. And then another editor would say, I already have thrillers on my list. I don't know if blah, blah. Another editor would say, well, mob thrillers aren't really selling right now. So as this was happening, again, it was only a handful. It was only like 10, editors that the book was sent to. I started to get this sense that, for some of the reasons the book wasn't being picked up had nothing to do with the story. It had more to do with like the market and could it be sold, how would it sell, and positioning and things like that. And at the same time, this was like in 2011, self-publishing was exploding. Ebooks were coming on the scene, like the industry was really changing. And so I said to my editor, my agent at the time, we sat down and she's like, okay, this is where we are so far. We have this many rejections, but we have like a stack of agents, a stack of editors that we can send the book to. What do you want to do? And I said to her, I think I want to self-publish. And I remember her face, like, because it was such a scary thing, because there's not a really good track record for self-published authors, especially at that time.
Right.
I think she was fearful for me. But I don't know if I was just naive or if I was just idealistic, or because of my journalism background, I know my way around a press release. I thought I could really market it. That's what I wanted to do. And so we're friends to this day and still colleagues. But she sent me on my way and I was very excited. So to answer your question, my long-winded answer, I ended up self-publishing the book in May 2012, which was super special to me because, like I said, I was doing this on my own and I had chosen this road. And it was amazing. I think for me, and I still remember this, the day that it was published, or that it went live on Amazon, you share the news on all your social media accounts, and all my friends were like sharing and excited for me. And it was just really a special time. So yeah, it was amazing. I mean, there's still, especially then, there was still that stigma about, you're a self-published author, and almost like that's not being a real author, which I think is so funny because I know a lot, a lot of self-published authors sell way more books than traditionally published authors. So,
they get more royalty.
Correct. Right. So, I think we're all in the same boat, whatever road you choose, whether it's the traditionally published route or self-publishing route, the reader, honestly, and something else I learned back then, the reader doesn't even care. As long as you're giving them a really well-written story in a nice package and a professionally looking book, they don't care if it came to them through self-publishing or traditional publishing. They just want to read it. They just want a good story.
Right. Yeah. In the end, it doesn't matter as long as they enjoy that story.
Right. Exactly.
There's plenty of stories too, traditionally published. Sometimes it's 50-50. Some people loved it. Some people hated it.
Right.
You get a whole batch of people, they couldn't stand it or they loved it. So yeah, it's really all about the story. But
Yeah, agreed.
nowadays, I think, I think that was more of like an old-fashioned way of looking at it, since indie authors, it was so new, and
Right,
maybe a lot
right,
of people couldn't, you know, adjust or get used to the fact that you can actually, be an independent author and do a lot of the stuff yourself when everyone was so reliant on,
right.
everybody else to help you get that book out. So now everything's on the indie author, which at times is great because you have so much control over your work.
Yes, yes,
And the other
exactly.
times it is a lot of work. And when you're first starting out, it's intimidating because you don't know, usually you don't know any other writers, or you
Right,
don't know an
right.
editor, and who can you trust, and you don't know a cover designer, and you don't know how things go, and do you pay ahead of time? And so there's like a lot of confusion, right?
Yeah.
For a first time writer. Do you have
Oh,
like
for sure.
any advice on that? Like, do you have any direction
Well,
maybe?
what's interesting is, when I was starting out, I really was, I mean, there were some companies out there that were helping self-published authors, but now today, 10 years later, I mean, there's an entire industry around helping self-published authors, publish and market their books. And so my only would I mean, it depends. I mean, it depends what kind of self-published author you want to be. Like for me, I'm very type A and I'm a bit of a control freak. And so, I want to choose my cover designer. I want to choose my editor. I want to choose my,
Right.
every aspect of the book. And I'm not going to do it myself because that's not my forte, but I will choose the person that I want to do whatever it is I need. But there are other authors who don't want to do that. There are other authors who want to just they want to write this book and then hand it off to a company that will take care of everything for them.
Right.
And there's no right or wrong. It just, you have to just, my advice would be to recognize what kind of person you are, and choose the road that best suits that personality.
Right.
So
That's
if
good
you
advice.
know, yeah, if you know you're not, because I've worked with clients who are just, they don't care about social media, which drives me crazy because I try to explain to them that, just one post on Instagram can sell books in Australia. It's
Right.
unbelievable, the magic of social media.
Yes.
But they're not interested in that. So my advice would be to hire somebody then who can do the social media for them.
I totally agree. I think that
Yeah.
is really a missed opportunity. I know a lot of writers do not use social media, but it's really a missed opportunity because, like you said, one post can make such a difference. And that one post can be shared
Yes.
multiple times. It
Yes.
could go on for maybe hours, maybe days, maybe weeks, maybe months, and maybe years, right? Because
Oh
people
yeah.
just share stuff. And if you keep on just getting that out, and somebody might spot that cover, or somebody might spot that description of that book and say, hey, that sounds interesting. I think I'm going to pick up a copy of that book.
Right.
Yeah, a
Exactly.
lot of
It's a
people
missed
don't
opportunity.
realize
Yeah.
it. Oh, it
Yeah.
definitely is a missed opportunity. So now you've also started audio books. Am I
I
correct?
do. I have all my books on, well, almost all my books on audio. My latest book, In the Red, I'm working on the audiobook now. I finished recording it. I actually did the narration myself.
Wow.
And that'll be coming out later this year. So that's fun. It was challenging too.
That's
Um,
interesting because I'm trying. So you read the whole book and you do like the voices of the characters and stuff like that? Oh my
yeah,
God, it's
I'm not a
amazing.
theatrical person. Like I don't alter my voice a lot. I mean, I just maybe change it a few octaves. If I'm doing a child's voice, it goes up a little bit, or a man's voice, it goes down a little bit. But yeah, it's funny. And the producer that I work with somebody here on Long Island, Digital Waterworks, and the producer is always saying to me, his name is Dave Goldberg, that he loves to work with narrators who are authors because they really know their books best. They
Mm,
know how to do the inflection. They know, when where the rising action is. They just have a sense of the characters. And so he likes to work with them, and he also likes to listen to audiobooks that have been read by authors. So
yeah.
I had fun doing it. Without his guidance, I don't know what the books would have sounded like, but it was really a fun experience.
I can see how I agree where the writer is the better person to do the
Yeah,
audio book because the feeling, there's more feeling as
yeah,
opposed to someone else because you wrote the book. So you experienced the internal feelings when you were writing it for each
right,
character, and
right.
now you can translate that in the audio books. So what made you
Yeah.
decide to do audio?
My feeling is, as an author, I want to take advantage of every opportunity to get my story out there. And audiobooks is just a booming, booming industry. And so there's a company called acx.com, which is an Amazon company, and they were the ones I worked with for well, actually with all my books in order to get them available on Audible. So, but what's really great about ACX, especially if you're just starting out and you're trying to learn about audio, is they pair you with narrators. So at the time when I was doing Baby Grand, I was able to audition various producers who read a sample of my book for me, and was able to choose who I wanted to work with to narrate the entire book.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, and they have different deals that you can do. You can pay the producers outright up front. You can do a royalty share agreement. So there's a lot of options for you if you're interested in doing audiobooks. And I recommend it, again, just to have another way for readers. I mean, there are readers out there who just read audiobooks.
Yes.
So why not reach them?
You could read in the car.
Yeah.
You could read while
Yeah.
you're doing the dishes, because you're
Exactly.
not actually reading, but you're listening to the book. So you can listen to the book doing the dishes, doing the laundry, anything, doing your
Yeah,
hair,
it's
right?
great.
Applying your makeup. So
Right.
sometimes that's a faster way even to read a book.
Definitely.
with
Yeah,
the
my
audio.
husband only listens to audio. You know, he doesn't have time to read really. So yeah, there are those readers out there, and why not grab them? Why not, get your
Yeah,
stories available to them?
that's right. And it opens up a whole new world for people that usually don't read books.
Right,
For
exactly.
whatever the reason is,
Exactly.
they don't read books. Sometimes they can't even see the fine print. I know that's
Right.
difficult, right? That's difficult for
Right.
some people. So
Exactly right.
that is definitely another way to reach readers through those audiobooks. So now, you said you did audiobooks for all three, the whole trilogy?
I did. I worked with now different narrators for the first two books in the trilogy, and then for the third book, Baby Carter, I was like, maybe I'll try, give it a try myself. And so I narrate book 3, and then we just did this summer In the Red, which was my latest book, and so that audiobook will be available hopefully by Christmas.
Oh, wow. That is
Yeah,
very nice. How long did it take you, would you say?
it takes a long time in the studio. I would say, oh gosh, maybe 15 to 20 hours of studio time for
Oh,
me to do a book. Yeah.
I saw the picture on, I think it was Instagram of you in the
Yeah.
studio, and I was like, oh, look at that. Dina's doing the audiobook. I thought that was fantastic. I think that's a great post because it shows you in a different
Right.
way now. You're recording your audiobook, which is very exciting for anyone who knows about audiobooks or has done it themselves or want to do an audiobook.
Yeah.
It's
It
pretty
really was a
exciting to
great
see a
experience.
writer it was pretty exciting to see in the studio getting ready to do, like, I'm doing my audiobook, I'm recording my audiobook. So I think, yeah, that was fantastic. So now, do you get a certain amount of time during the day? Is it like studio time, or do you just say, all right, you know what, I had enough. I'm losing my voice. Like, was it hard when you first started? Did you have to have water, like
Yeah,
blasters?
I usually have water with me, and it was really cool. I know my limits, and so I knew that I probably wouldn't want to do more than 2 hours at a time in the studio. So that's how we book the studio time in 2-hour increments.
Right.
And even then, Dave is really cool. He's like, if you're not feeling well today, if your allergies are bothering you, we can always stop. We can always, reschedule, things like that. But for the most part, it worked out. We did like 2 hours at a time.
Right, right. Well, I think that is really, really super interesting. And now your latest book, you said, is titled In the Red.
That's the one that's out that came out in 2019.
So tell us a little bit about that one.
In the Red takes place on Long Island. It's my first real murder mystery thriller. I always say there's a bit of a mystery in Baby Grand, but this is more of a traditional mystery where there's this crime in the first chapter, and then you meet these characters surrounding this horrible crime, whether it's the detective Munson, or the local assemblyman, and then our heroine. And so the plot is basically that this CPA for a Long Island village has been brutally murdered, and all eyes are on his a rival CPA who is doing business across the street, who everyone seems to think is the murderer, except for our heroine, who has fallen in love with him, and she's the only one to believe in his innocence. So that's sort of the premise of In the Red.
As a matter of fact, you just refreshed my memory because I did start it. I have it in
Oh,
my,
you did?
yeah, I have, it's an ebook. I have it in my phone. You just reminded me when you started talking about, I was like, wait a minute, I did start that because it was all just so familiar to me. Okay, wonderful. So now let everybody know how they can get your books.
Oh gosh, my books are available on, yeah, as they say, wherever fine books are sold. Yeah, on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Kobo, Apple, Google Play. They're available in ebook form, audiobook, and also paperback. And yeah, I mean, again, just like you were asking about audiobooks, I think it's important because there are some readers who only prefer ebooks or actually, they're not available in hardcover, but maybe soon. Right now, it's just paperback and ebook and audiobook.
Okay, well, that's a lot of places. That's almost just about everywhere.
Yeah, yeah. And what's really cool is Amazon just came out with the new, now they're offering hardcovers.
Yes,
So that's new this year.
I did see that. That's also a great
Yeah,
one. Yeah, some people love hardcovers. I think hardcovers look really good too sometimes on the shelf,
I think so too.
right?
Yeah.
They're very, very nice. So what's coming up for you? What's going to be happening?
I am doing a sci-fi thriller, which I'm really excited about.
Oh,
I started it. I'm trying to remember when I started. I had a dream in 2017, and when I woke up, I remember telling the dream to my oldest son, and blah blah blah. I'm saying all the stuff, and I said to him, "I think this is going to be my next book." And so, yeah, I think I started. I'm trying to remember when I started working on it. I think I started working on it during the pandemic. I think it was January 1st of 2020. Unfortunately, I had to put it well, fortunately too, I had to put it aside for most of this summer because I got a lot of work as a freelance writer and editor. But my hope is to get back to it. It's about 2/3 done. And hopefully I can finish it by, if not the end of the year, by like first quarter 2022. And my hope is to have it out soon after that.
that sounds really interesting too.
Yeah.
So you said it came to you in a dream,
Yeah.
this story?
Yeah.
So have other stories come to you, like anything other book related maybe that you wrote about, like while you were in the process of writing any of your other books? Did you ever dream about the story you were writing about, or did it have any
Um,
impact on your books? Maybe you said, oh, I dreamt about that last night. I'm gonna put that in my book. Anything you recall like
It,
that? Or
it could be. I'm trying to think. I don't think so. I mean, the thing about writing fiction for me that's so different than nonfiction is I'm just constantly thinking about the books. As I'm doing the dishes, as I'm driving, the characters are just swirling around in my head. And I'm always I'm always thinking of dialogue, bits of dialogue or plot changes and things like
right.
that. So for me, when I think back, it's hard to remember what was a dream and what was just me daydreaming about the book. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I could see that. And
yeah,
then when you do latch on to something, do you jot it down right away, or are you able to keep it in your mind?
I have to write it down immediately. And if because I'm so afraid that I'm going to forget whatever it is. So if I'm in the car driving, I have to pull over and write it down, text it to myself. Or if I'm in the shower, I actually have a notepad with a pencil suction cupped to the shower wall. So I will
Oh,
write it down.
wow. So
Yeah,
you
because I have a
probably, yeah.
lot of ideas in the shower.
Yeah, I could imagine all ideas all day long,
Yeah,
right? While
yeah.
you're having a conversation, anything while you're doing your hair. So where is your biggest idea place though? While you're doing the dishes, you said where is like you would
Oh,
say,
I would definitely, well, maybe it's a tie, but I would say in the car and while I'm taking a shower. From what I understand, it's when your body's moving, but your mind is free, is when the most ideas come to you. So when I'm busy, washing my hair in the shower, my mind is just thinking about various things. And that's when I usually have these aha moments where I'm like, that's it. If I'm thinking of a scene that I can't, connect in some way, more often than not, I will figure it out in the shower.
right. And before you go to sleep, yeah, it's like the water is like, it's like watering a
Right.
plant,
It's
I
like
guess, right?
cleansing
Like,
me.
yeah. And before you go to sleep, do you think about your stories before you go to sleep, or is that just the time that you just do not think about work and writing or your characters, or is that a big time for you to think about?
Yeah, I'm just constant. It's constant. It really is. It's almost obsessive. It's very overwhelming when I'm writing fiction. It's just and it's like that from when I start chapter 1 in the beginning until I write the end. I'm just
Right.
completely absorbed in whatever story I'm working on, which is probably why I can only work on one book, one fiction, not, one novel at a time,
At a time.
because I'm just completely sucked into it. And there's, I don't know if you ever saw the movie, what's it called? A Beautiful Mind with Russell Crowe.
No,
Um,
but I definitely want to see that movie. Yeah. I
it's a
have
great, it's
not
a great
seen it
movie.
though.
And
Yeah.
I always
He's
say it's
the
kind of like,
isn't he the mathematician or something? He's the math
yes,
guy, right?
yes. And he's a schizophrenic, and he sees people, that aren't there. And so wherever he is in his life, he can look over and he can see people, walking with him. They
Like
look
I
real to
see,
him.
is it like I See Dead People, like with Bruce Willis, the
Yes,
suspense? Is it
it's
something?
very similar. It's
Is it?
very similar.
Oh,
Yes,
I did not
yes.
know that. I didn't know.
And I always say being a novelist for me is like that. I could be at a communion with my family, and these characters are always following me around while I'm writing a book, and it isn't until the book is done that they're gone. And I always say it's because I've gotten the stories onto the page. Like now it's like locked into the page, and I don't need to think about it anymore. So yeah, they're, and
Right.
it can be lonely too, because I always say I never feel like I'm alone, because as a novelist I'm always surrounded by my characters.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Yes. I totally agree. Now, when you finished the trilogy, was it hard to let go of all those characters?
Oh my God, it so was. I finished writing Baby Carter, or one of the final scenes at, or was it Baby Bailino? Oh no, it was Baby Carter, in Panera Bread. That was like a big place for me to write. I would pack up my stuff, I would get my usual lunch at Panera, and I would write there for a couple of hours. And there was one of the final scenes I wrote there for Baby Carter, where I just started crying. I mean, like
Wow.
blubbering, because as a thriller, it's not surprising that people are dying, especially at the end of a book.
Yeah, that's not
And
a spoiler because it's to be expected.
I'm just weeping. It's just ridiculous. People are trying to have their lunch, and I'm sitting there in my booth, and I'm just weeping. And I remember one time I was writing Baby Grand, and this was at my dining room table. And the same thing happened, where I guess I had to kill one of my characters, and I was crying. And my husband walked into the room and said, "Are you crying?" And I said, "Yeah." And he's like, "Aren't you reading your own book?" And I said, "Yes." He's like, "But you know what's going to happen." And I said, "Yeah, I know. But if I don't cry, how can I expect anyone else to cry?" Like, that's what I want.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
I cry too. You're not alone. And I feel when I write and I cry that it's good. I feel like
Yes.
if I
Yes.
can reach myself with something
Right.
that I've written, then
Right.
hopefully I am going to be
Right.
able to, you know, pull that emotion from the reader.
Right. Exactly. Completely. Yeah, exactly.
And then let me ask you this, because I know this has happened to me. If I am left alone from the time that I get up to the time it's, it could be really late at night, but if for some reason no one is in the house, I can just write. I mean, I'll take breaks to eat, or, to like clear my head a little bit, maybe do a little bit of exercise, or, clean up, whatever the case may be. But do you find that, because you said you're obsessed with it, so do you
Oh,
find that you
completely.
could get up, like if nobody was home and you didn't have to do anything, cook dinner, clean, even shower? Do you find that you could just like sit in front of that laptop and just start like typing away?
It's funny. I'm sure I could, but I can't remember a day in my life where nobody was home
When
and I
you've
had
had
nobody.
that,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm trying to remember. Like there are some times where I've taken business trips, and yeah, I've gone to events, and then I just have the hotel room to myself. And you're right. It's a beautiful thing. I can sit there and I could just write all day long, because
Yeah.
those characters are calling.
Right. And then you look at the
Yeah.
clock, and before you know it, you're like, oh my God, I've been sitting here for 6 hours.
Right,
I
right.
have to go to sleep
Yes.
because I have to get up tomorrow. Do you find it difficult when you go on business trips? Because I guess you stay in hotels,
Mhm.
right? Do you find it difficult to write in hotels, or are you fine?
No, I find it because it's quiet, because like
Because it's
here I have
home.
so many distractions in my house, whether it's the dog or the laundry, or at the time my children when they were young. I mean, less so now. But I find that when I'm just away in a hotel room by myself, it can be, in terms of writing, it can be heaven. Yeah.
Right, right. And also, Now with your In the Red coming, your In the Red is out, I'm sorry, but with the science fiction now that's coming
Yes.
out, can you just give us a little bit, like if it's maybe aliens, or would you rather not say? Because if you don't want to talk about it, it's perfectly fine. I'm just curious because you said it came to you in a dream. But if it's like bad luck to talk about it, or you
No,
prefer,
no.
we won't talk about it at
No,
all.
no, no, no. It's not bad luck, but I think that right now the story is still unformed, and so I feel
Okay.
only like I really can't say anything because at this point anything can change. Like
Yes.
as you know, as a novelist, you're deleting chapters. Sometimes I'm deleting characters in the end because they don't work. So at this point, I'm not saying too much about it. There's no aliens. It's really just people like you and me who find themselves in this dystopian world. And
Mhm.
there is time travel involved. But at this point, I think that's all I can say, because at this point, I don't know, even though it's 2/3 done, I think the whole premise and the plot isn't quite cemented in my mind yet.
Right, anything could change. So, and
Yes.
when you started that book, which one did you have? Like you said, with the first book, you had the end. So with this book, was it just the idea, or did you have a beginning? Did you have the end? Did you have anything with this one that you're working on?
That's a great question. I had the beginning, but as you know, with dreams too, it's kind of like it, it wasn't totally
Foggy.
clear what I was writing, but I had this premise, and I was just going to go with it. And in the end, the book is very different from the dream that I had, but it's still inspired by it.
Right, right. And tell
Yeah,
us a little bit about your nonfiction. Does any nonfiction work have your name on it?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay. Yeah, tell us about that.
yeah. Let's see. I work with authors who need like a little help maybe working on their books, because sometimes authors are so knowledgeable in their fields and they have got so much to say, but they just may need somebody to bounce ideas off of, or somebody to help with
Mm,
organization, and things like that, or maybe sometimes just to stay on schedule.
right,
So
right.
yeah, I do a lot of collaborating and sometimes it's ghostwriting. And since the pandemic, I have to say, knock on wood, I've gotten quite a lot of work, and I think it's because, unfortunately, in 2020, when everything shut down, businesses were shutting down, and people found themselves with some free time. People were baking bread or doing all kinds of things, but there were also
Yeah,
people who decided maybe this is the time I should finally start that book I've always wanted to write. And
right.
so, yeah, so I've got a lot of new clients during the pandemic, which I feel, blessed to have gotten. But it's been, and what and I'm asked all the time if what I love more, writing fiction or working on the nonfiction. And I think people assume that it's the fiction because it's my ideas and my stories, but it's really not always. And I think I love them both equally because I really enjoy helping people, reach their potential and achieve their dream of writing a book. And I learned so much. I mean, I've worked with former Navy SEALs. I've worked with private investigators. I've worked with psychologists. I've worked with people in government. I've learned so much from them. I help them write their books, but I've learned so much from them. And I think as a person, I've grown. So I really do like both sides of what I do. I just wish there were more hours in the day.
Right, I know, there's never enough hours in the
I
day.
know, oh my gosh.
So when you wrote your nonfiction, that's when you met with the actual people, you said investigators and,
Yeah, yeah, we sit down, and those books, the way they're written, are always very different. It depends on how the author wants to go about it. But yeah, I meet them in person, and it's incredible. I mean, it's just, our
yeah,
lives are so very different, but we come together for this common goal and this common project. And and in the end, we have this thing in our hands that, people can read.
yeah, the finished product. And then
Yeah,
meeting these people too, I imagine it helps, form your fictional characters too, because now you know a lot. It's like the
right,
same thing with research. So
right,
now you actually
exactly.
get to meet these people and have a conversation with them and see how they, how their demeanor is and how they speak and
Right.
how they handle themselves. And yeah, that's a very, very interesting. So you really have like an open world to you when it comes to your writing?
I think so. I think so. I feel, like I was saying about when I started off in journalism, I really feel like, nobody aspires to write about lamp finials, but at the same time, I was given such autonomy in trade journalism I was responsible for putting out sections every week on various products. But I was traveling, I was meeting so many people, I was learning how to interview, I was learning how to listen to people, I was learning to pay attention to detail, all these traits that I put into my creative writing today. So
Right.
I don't know what kind of a writer I would have been had I not been a journalist first. Because to
Yeah,
me, they're one and the same in so many ways.
that is so, yeah, that's amazing. That is amazing. And thank you for sharing all of these stories.
Oh my gosh, my
Thank you
pleasure.
for
Thank you for
sharing.
having me.
Oh, you are so welcome. And thank you for sharing your books. And guys, Dina's books are available in, and how did you put it? Anywhere fine books.
Wherever fine books are sold.
So yeah, look up Dina. And if for those of you who aren't watching live now, if you do watch the repeat later, which I know you will, and if you have any questions, please don't be shy. Post the questions. I'm sure Dina would be happy to answer
Oh,
any
definitely.
questions. And before we go, because it is almost an hour, we have a few minutes left. Just tell us what services you provide.
Oh, you mean for
Editing
nonfiction?
and
Oh, yeah. I'm a freelance writer and editor. I'm also a coach. And so if you're looking to write your own book finally, or you need help with writing your book, I mean, I've had clients where, I coach them through the entire writing of their books, chapter by chapter. We would, we'd work on it together, talk about ways of making it better. And I like to be there for every step of the process that, in whatever capacity you need me. And it's been such a joy. It's been such a joy to help people, at the end of their process go, oh my gosh, like you were saying before, I wrote a book. How amazing is that? And I feel blessed to be a part of that person's journey.
oh, that's wonderful. That is
Yeah.
wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Dina. I know we have
Thank
a couple
you.
of comments, but we could always get to them later.
Yes, for
We will
sure.
let you go. Thank you again for joining me.
Thank
And
you,
guys,
Stephanie.
oh, you're welcome. And guys, thank you so much for watching. And don't forget, just in case you happen to miss us live, you can always catch it on the replay. And Dina will be happy to answer
Oh,
any questions or any comments. The more the merrier. All right,
thank
everybody,
you.
have a great day. And thank you,
Bye-bye.
Dina. All right,
Bye-bye.
bye, guys.